What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here, PackersNews.com, live on Facebook late in the day on Monday afternoon. The Packers rookie camp has come and gone. The Packers begin OTAs in a little bit down the line here in a week or so, but always something to talk about, always questions to be asked, always things to churn the rumor mill, so to speak, and see what's on your minds. What's on the minds of Packers fans on a early May afternoon. Jeremiah starts us off with good morning from Japan. What's up? What's up, Japan? Checking in. Get your Packers news wherever you are in the world. That's what we're all about. Connecting people worldwide here at PackersNews.com. Evan, ETA for Rodgers' contract? Your guess is as good as mine. I would think sooner rather than later. My guess is around June 1st. Let's give it that. Now, I say that, and they'll probably have it done this week. Who knows? Dez Bryant updates. There are none. It's been radio silent around Dez, not only with Green Bay, but around the league. What do you think of the draft? Junior, I think they had a good draft as far as addressing some of their needs. It's impossible to say how they did until we see these guys start to perform on the field. Traditionally, you'd like to wait 3 years to judge a draft. I know in this current media climate we find ourselves in, that is a bit impossible, but you know, I think they got a bunch of really exciting athletes. Now we'll see if they can play. Chris, what up, man? How are you? Tommy, thanks for hanging out, man. What date is Bulaga ready to play at 100%? Danny, that is a $1 million question right there, or a $5 million question, seeing as that's what they're slated to pay Bulaga. When we asked Mike McCarthy that the week of the draft, he said that Bulaga is ahead of schedule in his recovery from the ACL tear. They would know a lot more at the start of camp, is what McCarthy told us then. You know, he won't talk about a timeline for obvious reasons, but I continue to say, and I'll say it all summer, I will be absolutely shocked if he's ready to go week one. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean he'll start the season on the PUP, which would the physically unable to perform list, which would knock him out for the first 6 weeks. Mandatory, you have to sit out 6 weeks, and then you can be activated, and then he could play after that, shortly after that. Doesn't necessarily mean he'll have to go on PUP if he does continue to be ahead of schedule and doesn't suffer any setbacks. But I can't, like I said, I cannot fathom a world where Brian Bulaga is injured and tears his ACL in November and then is ready to play a NFL football game in September. I know Adrian Peterson has wowed us with his ability to come back quickly. He's the one example people always point to when you talk about ACL tears and coming back on a shortened timeline. But obviously Bulaga, getting up there in age, has suffered multiple knee injuries along with other ailments. I'll be very, very surprised if he's ready to go at the start of the year. Do you think Madison might play right tackle? Well, you know, they wouldn't come right out and say it. It sure sounds like, although John Eric Sullivan did say, I can't remember the phrase he used, but if you, not gun to his head, but if you force me to say something, they'll start him at guard. I think they've said they're going to cross-train him. They want him to play as many positions as they can. You have to think they'll start him along the interior with an eye towards being able to kick outside. Gutekunst did mention that in his wrap-up press conference at the draft. He doesn't project to tackle in the NFL, but you never know. Neither did Mark Tauscher, and he handled it pretty darn well for a long time at a high level. So, again, you don't really know much of anything on these guys until we see them in pads on the field in camp. But, you know, the possibility is there. It definitely is. I don't think they're counting on it, but it's certainly something to look at. Dez Bryant is trash. Stop asking. Ryan, I don't think he is what he was, but, you know, I certainly don't think he's washed up. And I know a lot of people are kind of on that bandwagon, and I'm not one of them. I tend to think if you give him a quarterback who's ready to feed him the ball and is able to put it where it needs to be put, I think he'd surprise a lot of people. What's up with the hair, Nags? It's grown out, and I'm too lazy to do anything with it. It's pretty much what it is. Watch All or Nothing on Amazon. I did, Ryan. I watched it this weekend. Kaiser is as good as the QBs this year. Wayne, yeah, that was an interesting comment from Mike McCarthy in his post-draft press conference. He said that if DeShone Kizer was coming out this year, he'd have been one of the quarterbacks drafted in the first round. He said he was as good as the top 4 or 5 coming out this year. And I know on the face of it, it sounds kind of a bit outlandish, considering we now have a year's worth of work in the NFL of him being a turnover machine and not exactly looking like a long-term starter. But I will say, you know, one of the big knocks on him coming out of Notre Dame was that he came out a year too early. So you would think, you know, with another year of football under his belt, he's got an incredible arm. And we've seen as recently as, 2 years ago when Jared Goff came into the league, he looked absolutely terrible. And then went and obviously has a new coaching staff and a new offense, and all of a sudden looked much better than awful. I mean, I'm not saying DeShone Kizer is ready to make that kind of jump, but it illuminates how situation, teammates, coaching, it all plays into it. So would Kizer be a first-round pick this year? Yeah, I don't think it's a crazy thing to put out there. Now, who knows? Lamar Jackson going 32nd would maybe suggest that perhaps Kizer still would have gone in the second round, but you never know. Would Coby Fleener be too pricey for the Pack? Yeah, I saw the Saints release tight end Coby Fleener after 2 years, signed a free agent deal a couple years ago. As far as I know, he's still trying to recover from a concussion issue that's been ongoing for a long time, and I don't see the Packers going down that road. Is James Jones announcing Rodgers' contract when it happens? That's what Rodgers has told him. So if you're following James Jones on Twitter, keep refreshing, and you should find the news out first. Vogel signs with the Browns. Travis, actually, he was picked up on waivers, so he didn't really get to sign with anybody. He doesn't get to choose because he is a player with less than 3 years accrued in the league. He is subject to waivers, and Cleveland claimed him. Obviously, a lot of people over there, including Wolf and Highsmith, familiar with his work from last year in Green Bay. So they're forming a little Green Bay East out there. Will Aaron Rodgers make a movie? Ooh, that's an interesting question. Well, he did produce a documentary this draft season. He has talked about wanting to produce documentaries and other film stuff when he retires. So maybe someday. Why wouldn't Rodgers tell you first? I can't imagine. Is it true that A-Rob will sign for reported all of the money? Chris? I'm hearing that is the case. Yes, all of the money. Aaron Rodgers will sign for all of the money. You heard it here first. Which of our rookie receivers do you foresee putting up the best numbers this season? Whew, that sounds suspiciously like a fantasy football question. Look like you're shopping around in a dynasty league. It's really, really hard to say until we see them put pads on and run some routes against actual NFL talent. But I will say, watching their tape this past weekend, Moore is the one who really kind of grabs my eye. I think, the other two are interesting in so much that they're tantalizing from a size speed ratio aspect. The idea that guys that tall, that fast in the Packers offense, it gets your blood going. It's something that you want to see, but I think Moore is the one who's ready to step on the field right away and contribute. I would suspect he will get kind of the first crack at it. Jake Ryan, question mark? I don't know, Timothy. What about Jake Ryan, question mark? If you're talking about his place on the roster, I wouldn't go so far to say it's precarious, but I will say that if, I think he's got to really not step up, but he's got to show that he belongs in the sense that he's going to contribute however he's asked, and he's going to have to contribute on special teams. His salary bumps up, not it's not an exorbitant amount, but it's a considerable hike, a couple $1 million, and he could easily be a salary cap casualty if, say, they get through camp and they deem him, extraneous to demands. Jake Ryan is our meat and potatoes guy. Every team needs one. I agree with that, Andrew. Does Geronimo win the spot next to Devontae? I think he's got the leg up, so to speak. Obviously, he knows the offense. Aaron Rodgers trusts him. There's no way that he doesn't get, I'm not going to say pole position, but he'll definitely, I would think, have a head start, so to speak. Geronimo equals slow. Yeah, that's true, but pretty much all the wide receivers the Packers have used over the last couple of years have been slow. He's a big body. That's what they like, especially late in the year, to kind of box out defenders, and you get slow track in Lambeau. That's kind of what they've always gone for. Jamon, week 1 starter. Alex, it's a possibility. We'll see how camp plays out. Who do you think will have a better year, Jamal Williams or Aaron Jones? They're a good 1-2 punch. I agree. I tend to think Aaron Jones will end up being the guy if he can improve in pass protection, but I do agree that both of them are talented and will undoubtedly feature throughout the season. We've seen the Packers, usually because of injury, but even when injury hasn't struck, they like to spread that ball around, even in the running game. Can we package? They're not trading for a guy who just got drafted. Come on, people. This is not fantasy football. Are they planning on restructuring Clay's contract? Doesn't sound like it. If they were going to, you would think they probably would have done it prior to free agency opening. The fact that they haven't touched it makes me think they're happy letting him play out his final year of his deal. Whoever stays healthy will have the most yards. Bold. Do the Packers attempt to get veteran help across the O-line? Maybe if someone surprisingly comes free, or even surprisingly on the outside, they game these things out salary cap wise and have a really good idea for the most part. But I don't know. I would tend to doubt it. But surprise cuts sometimes happen. But usually, because where they really need the help is at tackle, and at this point, no one's cutting loose a tackle who can play. So we'll see. Don, Yancey progress. He's the one I'm most interested in to see kind of try and take that jump from year 1 to year 2. I thought he was coming on at the end of camp last year. We'll see how he looks. Obviously there's going to be a lot of attention on the rookie wide receivers. He's kind of been the forgotten man. Michael Clark was the guy who was called up at the end of last year. But I think Yancey's got game. I think he could make some noise and surprise some people. But, those reps, you got to make the most of every single one of them. Let's see. How are the rookies doing so far? Well, they've all arrived and come into rookie camp and survived, and nobody got hurt. So that's a step up from last year when Vince Beagle got hurt on the very first day. Does Patton show a little more 4-3 with Muhammad Wilkerson? That's a really good question. Obviously, they would never say. I would tend to think it's a possibility, especially since Nick Perry has experience in his past with playing with his hand on the ground. I definitely think it's something he'll tinker with. I would be absolutely shocked if he didn't. I don't think it's going to be their base. I don't think it's going to be something they use a ton of, but as a wrinkle, it wouldn't surprise me. What UDFA do you like to make the team? Oh, Chris, let's let him get on the field with some pads on first. Right now, they're just running around. I have no idea. How do you get injured on the first day? I don't know, man. Ask Vince Beagle. Kobe Fleener for the 2 or 3 tight end. As I said before, I don't think they'll go after Fleener, who is recovering from ongoing concussion issues. Are all the rookies signed? All but the top 3. Everyone else is, but the first 3 round picks are the only ones are outlying right now. Will Alexander start? I think he's got the clearest chance to. I think he's got the clearest road to playing time, just because I think they'll try him in the slot, which is where they need the help the most. They've got a lot of perimeter guys who will battle out there. I think Tremont will probably have one spot on one side, and then I think Kevin King, Devon House, Josh Jackson, Lindsey Pipkins, they'll probably battle for that opposite end. And then on the interior, you're playing with 3 corners pretty much 75% of the time, as Mike Pettin keeps reminding us. I think that's where Alexander will have his shot, and I think he'll get every opportunity to win that spot. Fleener just signed with the Saints. Why would they trade him? No, actually Fleener got cut today after signing a deal 2 years ago. What do you think about the defense? Oh, I keep saying I think Mike Pettine is a fantastic hire. I'm interested to see how he goes about cobbling together this group in conjunction with his scheme. But, like I said, I've said it repeatedly here, on Twitter, wherever. I think Pettine was the most important addition they've made this offseason. Sherwin, Ty Montgomery back to receiver. Not full-time. They'll continue to run him at running back. I think he'll be a bit of a switchblade type where he'll kind of do a bit of everything. But I don't think his days as a running back are over yet. What's your guess for the right side of the offensive line? I think they'll put Mark Murphy. They'll put Mark Murphy at right tackle. They'll put out Kyle Murphy at right tackle, most likely, because I doubt Spriggs is ready, although you never know, for week 1, because I definitely don't think Bulaga will be ready. And then I think Justin McRae will most likely win the right guard job. If the defense is top 10, what are the Packers' chances of a Super Bowl run? Very good. Who do you think will be the starting running back in week 1? Donnie, ask me again after we get a couple weeks of camp and we can see how Aaron Jones is doing in pass protection. If Jones improves in pass pro, it'll be Jones. Are we deep enough at wide receiver? Well, the Packers certainly hope so with the addition of 3 rookie wide receivers, coupled with the continued development of Geronimo Allison, D'Angelo Yancey, Michael Clark. Obviously there's not a ton of experience there, but there's a lot of athleticism, a lot of big, tall guys. So we'll see. We need back Richard Rodgers. Unfortunately, he's with the Eagles. Signed a deal a couple weeks ago. Will Mike McCarthy call the plays or will the new offensive coordinator call them? That will be Mike McCarthy. After McCarthy took back play calling from Tom Clements a couple years ago, he said several times something he would never do again. He will always call the plays as long as he's coach. Did Green Bay try trading Hundley during the draft? Curtis, not that I've heard, and I did ask around about it, but myself, my colleagues, we haven't heard anything as far as the Packers calling anyone about him or anyone calling the Packers about him. Is it safety or bust for Quentin Rollins? I mean, I guess it's a possibility. He certainly doesn't have the speed to hold up against some of the quicker wide receivers in the league. We've seen that time and time again. But, they've got decent depth at safety. I don't see a path for him onto the roster, barring injuries elsewhere and his turning around and playing surprisingly, shockingly better than he did last year prior to his injury. But we'll see. I mean, that's the beauty of it. He has final say in how he plays when he gets to camp. Would you expect more of a second-year jump, Adams or Beagle? Probably Beagle. I don't really know what they have with Adams at all. Do you think they will move Clay inside? Dan, I think they'll move him around, much like they always have. I don't think that's going to change very much. But I think there'll be less kind of obvious kind of rotation where you knew you were going to get Clay inside, and they kicked him inside a lot on third downs last year. Became kind of repetitive and obvious, and offenses were ready for it. I think Pettine will move him around a little bit more, not surprisingly, but a little bit more unexpectedly. Do you know the guy who ate 30,000 Big Macs? Actually, that is one of my best friend's uncle. It's Don Gorski. My oldest, bestest friend from Wisconsin, Ben Gorski, that's his uncle. So I have met him, and yes, I know him in passing. Let's see. 1 or 2 more here, folks. What you got? Who's going to be the special team standout this year? Oh, that's a good question. You know who I think would surprise, and I think probably nobody wants to hear this? But if he makes the team, Kyler Fackrell. I think he has the makings of being a special team stud. I think that's where he belongs. But he's got to make the team first. 2015 worst Packers draft class in recent years. Well, it was not good. Let's put it that way. But 2015 was not a great class, kind of overall across the league. How much weight did the Big Mac guy gain? Not barely anything, because he never eats the fries. He only eats the Big Macs, and he's actually kind of real thin. Who will return punts and kickoffs? Jair Alexander will probably be your leader in the clubhouse. I think he and Trevor Davis will probably battle for those jobs. I think Equiminius starts next to Adams. We'll find out. We'll see how he does. He's got to pick up the offense, got to earn Rodgers' trusts, got to show he can be where he's supposed to be, make all the adjustments on the fly, read defenses the same way, you know. We'll see. The always cheery Dennis chimes in with, is Vogel another bust? I don't see how you call him a bust. He was an undrafted free agent. They brought him in, had a decent year, and then they found something better. So they let him go. I mean, they found something better in their eyes. Their punter that they drafted, they scouted and determined that he was an upgrade. I wouldn't call Vogel a bust. They didn't have any kind of capital put into him. They didn't draft him. It's hard for me to say he's a bust. Did you ever play football? Yes, I did. I played a really bad brand of quarterback in Pop Warner and junior high school. Oh, and my freshman year of high school. Beer here. Keith, that's the best thing I've heard all day. I'm going to go get myself one. Thanks a lot, everyone. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to your question, but thanks so much for joining me. It's always kind of amazing on a lazy May afternoon that 400 people are here. Make sure you're checking PackersNews.com for all the latest. We've got everything from rookie camp, anything going on with the Packers. Barring any breaking news overnight, I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Thanks a lot, everyone.